Welcome to Underqualified Thoughts, where two brothers-in-law have conversations stemming from their daily lives. Expect authentic, relationship-building discussions that time capsule the early years of these podcasters' families, careers, and pastimes. All right, guys, so welcome back to the 6th episode of the Underqualified Thoughts podcast. There's been a lot of change in the past 2 weeks, and certainly we're moving through the holiday seasons with Thanksgiving just now. I think that's...
I thought you were meant to say we're moving through the holiday seasons with Thanksgiving. I was like, wow, so eloquent.
With Thanksgiving being the last one. And I guess we were just talking about it before we started this podcast. I think today's topic, for all those people that want a very specific, clear topic, that
whoever you may be,
is that we want to talk about how our lives were upended in the past 2 weeks. I am personally a man of structure, and Andy is not. But we're going to talk about that this on this episode.
Have you seen The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or heard the theme song?
Ironically, I have heard the song. My brother brought it up to me yesterday. I've never seen the show. Luke, yeah.
There's a line in the theme song where he says, "My life got flipped, turned upside down."
Oh yeah. I know
that was our last 2 weeks.
Yep. For a lot of different reasons. So where do we start?
10 days, am I right?
10 days.
That did not happen.
So let's just recreate the scene. We were on the way to Pam Harrison's house for a...
Hey, no last names.
Pam's house.
Our mother-in-law.
Our mother-in-law's house for like the last get-together for Caitlin and Andy before their pregnancy.
That's what makes it even more... like ironic.
And because we're not
ironic, it was just more on the nose because it was Thursday night and then Friday was the last normal day of the rest of our lives because Caitlin's water broke Saturday morning at 6 a.m. and little Lily showed up at 2:30 in the morning.
Congrats.
Sunday. Oh,
Congrats.
Well, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
Yeah. They'll have already heard the congratulations when you include the voicemail at the start of the podcast.
Yep.
That was gold.
So yeah, baby was born 3 days.
3 days
after instead of 10.
So basically a week early.
Yeah.
Which isn't crazy. And honestly, for our life and our schedule, that made it easier. Like if she had gone a week or two late, it would have just been right before Thanksgiving, and
that would be crazy.
That would have made this week even more chaotic. Obviously, this week wasn't that chaotic because now we're one of 6 babies in the extended cousin family tree. So there's a lot of moms around to take care of Lily so that I was able to, step away, have conversations with you and other people and not have to be tending to a child at all times.
So Andy's a third week parent now, I guess entering third week?
Tomorrow will be, because today's Saturday, tomorrow will be the 3rd week.
Yep. So Andy's a third week parent now.
20 days.
Under the belt.
Seasoned veteran at this point. Absolutely have everything under control, he says with a huge cloud of sarcasm hanging over it.
But, obviously that upended life that you're no longer just you and Caitlin. And you weren't before, but like now the baby's like conceptualized. Like the baby's there.
She's real.
I
can touch her. She moves.
Yeah.
Well, that happened a few times in the womb, but...
And she'll cry.
Oh, she'll cry.
I was in disbelief that Andy's child, Lily, had the ability to cry because... So a week after the pregnancy, y'all went to a wedding. Mm-hmm. I didn't see Lily cry at all.
Well, you didn't... Were you not there for the meltdown at the end?
No. Lily was just kind of there. Like she wasn't...
You must have missed it.
Was she crying?
The reason we left early... Well, that was around the time we were planning to leave, but the reason we were leaving in a hurry at that stage was because she was having a meltdown.
The baby was. Mm-hmm. See, I didn't. I was just hanging out. I was just there. I didn't hear the screaming. And I didn't hear the screaming until... when did you call me?
Yesterday. It wasn't like
evening? 5 o'clock? 6 o'clock?
Yeah, it was after you had already come over for lunch and left.
Yeah.
I think it was probably after dinner. But yeah, we had made jokes about me calling you at 2 or 3 in the morning because you were like, I swear that baby doesn't scream at all. And I was like, oh, you want to hear that baby scream? I'll give you a call when that baby's screaming at 3 a.m. and leave you a voicemail.
Yeah. So Andy calls, the baby screaming, and I give him like 2 seconds of airtime and hang up. And
You were like, all right.
And the reality struck. The baby is real. The baby can scream, and I see that as like the iconic problem with the baby. Like you got to help the baby stop crying, bring it back to happiness,
Or at least peace.
peace, something. And that could take us down a whole rabbit trail of like depravity and sin and selfishness.
Talk about things we're underqualified to talk about, whether or not a child is doing this on purpose or not.
Yeah. At what point does the child start sinning? Free will, that sort of thing. But no, I thought it was actually pretty fun to see Andy and his wife, Caitlin, embrace this. Yeah, context. Embrace this new journey with Lily, and it's certainly a big struggle, but it's also a big joy. So, Andy, talk to us about what are the current struggles, as much as you'd like to share to the millions of people listening to this.
The millions.
And
subtract 999,990.
90.
We're probably at 10 people listening.
We'll count later. Anyway, yeah. So what are the current struggles, and then what are also the current joys?
I mean, there's a lot on both sides. I think just the overarching thing is at this stage, the joys outweigh the struggles. And from what I've heard from other parents, that's going to continue. Obviously, there can be extreme situations where you have, the little hellion kid in the rebel phase will be really frustrating. And then there will be more like pain than joy. But overall, I think there's set to be more joy. I think I told you this. So just to give the overarching journey with Lily thus far is when she was born, I didn't have like an overwhelming sense of excitement for her being there. Like my happiness was for Caitlin. Like when Lily was born, I watched her be delivered. They put her on Caitlin's chest, and Caitlin's like crying, tears of joy, so happy. And I was happy that Caitlin was so happy. And then because it was so late in the night and that labor was 21 hours, I was just like, I just want to go to bed. And I fell asleep on the floor in the hospital room because your wife and our mother-in-law were there helping us, which was an amazing amount of help. But they were like on the couch, and so I was like, I'm just sleeping on the floor. I'm going to bed. Then it wasn't until like 8 a.m, so I guess 5.5 hours after she was born, until I held her for the first time. And then holding her for the first time was cool. And then we had skin-to-skin contact where she was just in a diaper, and I laid her on my chest, and that is when the chemical connection began, and I started really caring for her. And then, the first few days in the hospital, like doctors are coming in and checking her, and she's like screaming at everything because everything is new. Like even screaming at the real things, like when she got like a shot or something, and screaming when they're just like changing her diaper or like checking her bones to make sure that they're, all one piece and all that stuff. And it was shocking how quickly you go from feeling an intense amount of pain and frustration that your baby's crying to then like you being like, oh no, oh my goodness, my baby's crying, to, oh no, my baby's crying again. Because yeah, she cries a ton, but what's been really the highlight is how well she's bonded to Caitlin, how well I've bonded to her, and how much blessing we have experienced from the community around us. Because I went to Walmart a couple of days after just to get some like little things that we needed for the house and like some snacks and stuff. But because of the meal train that we have from our church, like I wasn't having to buy like real groceries or think about making food and all that stuff, which was a tremendous blessing. And yeah, I mean, just the hardest part is the middle of the night. Just when she has to eat every hour or every other hour in the middle of the day, you're already awake, you're going about your day. It's not that big of a deal. But when you're trying to sleep and every hour or every other hour she's waking up, you're just like, oh my goodness, please go to sleep.
Well, I do think if there was any takeaways that anytime anyone is going through a big change, the biggest thing that will help that change is support, and having that group of people that you can lean into. This seems like a good jumping off point for my own little story.
Ooh.
And then we'll kind of surmise.
Yeah, and at some point in here, you can do like an ad read about like how good community is for the soul.
Yeah.
Live, laugh, love, grateful, thankful, blessed. All that jazz. Your mind's turning. You're thinking of how you can do it.
I actually didn't. I didn't include. Okay, so let's come back to that. Remind me of this after I finish.
Especially because of how the commercial went in episode 5.
That's
is that
exactly
what we're talking about? Okay.
Because let's see, that was okay. So 2 weeks ago, right?
Thought we were coming back to this.
We are. We're watch this. Or you had your child.
Yes.
I normally edit these podcasts Saturday or Sunday, and then we release them Monday.
So you can. Oh wait. So you can slap them on Monday.
That's right. I need to have a better procedure for that because inevitably something happens and I'm not able to get to it. And I really do like having them done by Monday evening, afternoon. I forget what the timeline is on this, but essentially it was Monday, 2 weeks ago, and we had a family emergency, me and my wife, and the reason why episode 5 is kind of not well done is because of that. I was just slapping it out. It was one of those family emergencies that I didn't have any control over, but I had to be around. So we left work. We came back to the house, and we were just waiting for the answers from people and whatnot. Long story short, that's why episode 5 has like the random commercial in the very middle that is like
where the audio of us talking isn't cut out.
I just left it in there, and it was tragic.
I think it was funny.
But I think, and that whole like family emergency deal lasted for like a solid 3 or 4 days, just kind of ups and downs, trying to figure out what's going on. But arguably the best like support there was, once again, the family for us. We didn't like broadcast what was going on to everyone. In this case, we're not even going to talk about what it is, but it was just rewarding to be able to have such a strong family connection that, you know, you can communicate those things with, and know that they have your back. And in this case, church is another great example for all the what do they call it? Meal train. Yeah. For when the baby comes. So here we are.
Any more decompressing to do about the emergency, or are we jumping right into the pod?
We'll jump.
The past pods.
We'll go ahead and jump. We're at like minute, let's see, 12:13.
Oh, plenty of time.
Yeah. So then we'll go ahead and wait. What's our strategy for the next 10, 20 minutes?
I mean, what we normally do. I think we just flip the order. Just talk about.
Oh, did we flip the order?
Yeah.
Oh, we did.
Yeah, because normally we riff about the past podcasts, and then we talk about something. But this, we're keeping the people on their toes.
That's right. Okay, so guys,
or we're showing that there are certain life circumstances that are more important to talk about than just useless banter about our podcast.
Yeah. So maybe we'll, I don't know, we're figuring it out. I just want to touch on this real quick. Let's just reiterate. I'll say my purpose for this podcast, and you can share your purpose for this podcast. And then,
you mean like as a whole, or this episode?
For you, the whole thing.
Okay.
The whole shebang. Because I want to emphasize that it's let me just share what I believe this is all about.
And especially because our origin story is already muddied because you and I have different ideas how this started.
Yes, I agree. Okay, so, and this will help us talk about the last podcast.
Mm-hmm. The last 2. 4 and 5.
I believe this podcast right now is fundamentally time capsule, something to do with Andy, which I would say that our relationship has grown through it. Am I wrong?
I mean, you text me a lot more chaotically than you ever used to, which apparently is a sign of our relationship getting better.
Yes.
Because I explain these, I like every now and again, I'll read these chaotic text messages out loud, and your wife just goes, so you're getting them now too.
So could one theorize that one has a, quote, close relationship with Caleb if he texts sporadically to you?
Yes, but not if you text in general, because you're texting strangers because your number's now out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so and then lastly, if we can bring So it's kind of,
You said time capsule, time
it's
with me.
arguably a little bit selfish for both of us. And then
Hey, speak for yourself.
What I would say, it's like, it's us. We're trying to figure stuff in life out, and we're sharing it to you. And if you happen to get encouragement or value from it, then that's great.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah. What about me? No, it was I was setting up one of those like classic sitcom banters where it's like, speak for yourself. And it's like, oh, what do you say? And then I say the exact
Exactly
same
the
thing. Because it's pretty similar. Yeah. I'm not as big on the time capsule vibe as you. That was more so you started the train there, and I've jumped on with you.
It.
Yeah, that. I could tell that's what you wanted to do, and I was like, you know what? Sure, I'll jump in on this time capsule. Definitely time together is a main reason, and then I think if for all those longtime listeners who listened to episode 1, one of the name ideas we had was external processing, and that's more or less what we're doing.
Free counseling.
Free count. I mean, no, we're absolutely not that.
What is it called when you just go to a psychologist and you just talk?
Therapy.
Free therapy with no counsel given.
No counsel given.
No unsolicited advice.
To be fair, no, there's got to be some unsolicited advice. I think, so that's funny. I think that's one of my pet peeves is unsolicited advice. But I also think that's like a pet peeve of the world. Like, it's just like generally like people, like you don't want to be told what to do, especially when you're not asking what to do. And so I think from my perspective, the reason I think this way is because I know I don't like unsolicited advice, but I know I have to be giving unsolicited advice. Like there's no way I'm just like so well controlled and don't have any thoughts or any judgments on what someone's doing. So I think that's the classic hypocrisy is too strong, but I think it's one of those things that we all do and we all hate when it's done to us. Do you agree? Do you think?
I agree. It's one of those things that you also kind of...
Can you are you consciously aware? Do you actively avoid giving unsolicited advice?
I do. Do you think I do?
No, I'm just asking. Because I don't know. Like, if I had to think about it, I'd
Attention all. If you're listening and I give you unsolicited advice, call me out on it.
Call them out.
And
call
just say, hey, like, thanks for your thoughts there. It wasn't asked for. Or just move on. Like, something.
Hit him with a K, thanks. Okay, bye.
I don't know. I know that we all need to be learners and have, and we all have valuable contributions to each other. I guess it's just the way we go about giving those thoughts.
Yeah, it depends on the relationship you have with the person and the timing of it. Because, like, our spouses give us unsolicited advice all the time, just like we give them unsolicited advice all the time. Yeah. You know, and it goes over really poorly when we're frustrated with them or they're frustrated with us, and you make that under the breath comment just loud enough that they can hear it, where it's, I wouldn't have done it that way, and then an argument ensues. Versus when you're having a conversation with them on the couch and they're just processing and venting about things, and you're able to give your thoughts in response to it after have actively listened.
Maybe it's just more of a guy thing. I think it's definitely more of a guy thing than a girl thing. I could be wrong about that. But it's easy for someone to be like doing something over there, and then another dude just walk up and say, well, this is how I would do it. I've been in so many of those situations. I'll be doing something and someone will come up to me like, no, do it this way.
Yeah. I don't...
Like, have you seen that with Caitlin? With McCamey, I can't really.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this exactly ties in, but the thought of like girls are mean to each other behind their backs and guys are mean to each other to their face. Maybe is the thread you're hitting on there, but I can't think of specific scenarios. But it's normally an age thing, and it's any age. Like, if someone, in our parents' generation is more likely to give unsolicited advice to me, and even me at the age of like 27, I'd be more likely to give unsolicited advice to someone who's in college or just out of college. So it has nothing to do with a massive generation gap. It just has to do with like, if you're any level more experienced than someone, you're just like, you kind of get that little bit of natural pride of like, okay, I've done this before.
Yeah.
So then circle all the way back to what the point of the podcast is. Time capsule for you, bonding time for the two of us. And I think it's just another hobby, something to do. I did find this interesting, and I haven't told this to you yet. The first 3 episodes we filmed when you came to our place to do it, for whatever reason, whatever mental headspace I was in, when we were planning to do it, I wasn't super excited about doing it. And then when we were actually having the conversation, like it was an enjoyable
It
conversation.
was actually fun. Yeah.
But then after it, I towards the end of the day on Saturday, I was like, I feel like I just wasted like 3 hours of my day doing that. Like, but then as soon as the podcast episode comes out and I'm listening to it again, then I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. It's like this weird cycle of like, I guess in the beginning, like having to work through the logistics of like, man, I wish this was just easier. Then you get through that, you have an enjoyable time, but then it took longer than you expected or it didn't go as you wanted it to. So then you're like not regretful, but like, I wish it would have gone better. But then when I see the final product out there, it's like, oh, like it's not perfect, but I love it. And like, these are the parts I love. These are the parts I'm laughing at. And I hate that freaking commercial you made about how I want to create the meta about Pam Harrison's coffee. You fiend.
You just need to learn not to say those things. Like I could take that whole sentence just now.
Yeah, I know I said them all back to back, but when you say you need to learn not to say those things, you mean I need to learn not to say words into a recording device where you're then able to chop it up and do whatever you want.
I was shocked how good it sounded too.
You make me sick.
It didn't even sound like it was chopped that bad.
Kaylin was cracking up at it, and I was like, and I think it was like, when something, like you're gonna find it funny, but like in the moment you're like, it's like a little bit annoying. I'm like, what does it even mean that I want to create the meta? And she's like, Kaylin was like, oh, just give him a break. He's making something. I was like, no, don't give him a break. It doesn't work.
Well, I did have this thought. It's always important to remember whenever you're starting a project that part of the maybe accomplishment of doing the project is completing it, even if it's not perfect. So we bought this $100 subscription to the podcasting feed that allows us to be able to submit these things to Spotify. So if you want to donate, let me know. But
we're having a podcast-a-thon. It's happening.
My phone number is.
You already know. Go back to episodes 4 and 5.
Yeah, just me. Text me. Anyway, so it's $100, and the rationale there
for a year, right?
For a year, yeah, and it's just post as much as you want. There's no limit.
So come beach week of next year.
That's right.
You're going to be episode like 10 of these episodes.
That's right. But I think it's really cool because we'll look back even in a year if we decide not to continue this, or even I don't know how he feels about like just stopping in June, or I don't know. The point is, if we just go all the way until the end of that like subscription year, that's just a really cool thing to say. Hey, like we podcasted for a year, and we missed like a week or two for holidays or whatever. But
or the birth of our children,
the birth of kids. But like that's just a really cool project.
I feel like right now it's too new to be very like boasting about it to complete strangers. But even when I've been going through this interview process and it's like, tell us about a project you've worked on. Like obviously the projects I've worked on at my work have been more detailed and have more applicable stories from them. But if this continues to go on and we have highs, we have lows, we learn things, we improve, it's a really easy story, especially if you've already talked about your job and you're like, hey, tell me some of the things you do on the side, some things that you're interested in.
Something more than just like, for me, pickleball. It's fun, but it's like this has a little bit more meaning in a way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, pickleball also works too, because I was thinking like I would have this and rock climbing. And, and all things, you just talk about your struggles, how you've worked to improve, and how you now enjoy it because you put the work in.
Maybe we save this for a later topic, but with the interview process, I've just been finding, and it ties into the last podcast we had about, we talked about your career and my career. It just ties into how they're always wanting like that solid evidence. And so being able to say, hey, like, it's still there, go look for it. Like that's... Yeah. I think it's pretty cool, and we'll see where it goes. Well, in our last 35 minutes or so...
35 minutes? Is that what I mean?
5 minutes.
You gotta say 3 to 5.
3 to 5 minutes.
3-5. What
closing thoughts? I feel like we've hit some good topics on this one. Like I feel like we had a good rehash of the past 2 weeks.
Yeah. Are we filming? You got me. Are we recording another episode after this?
Maybe. I'm open to it.
Because if we're recording another episode after this, I have more thoughts about our last podcast, and we can also touch on, because in your voicemail, you talked about my interview.
Oh,
And
that's good. Yeah.
that interview you asked about was my first interview. And I had a second interview with that same company on Tuesday of this week.
Well, let's just do that.
Do you have any closing remarks?
I have no closing remarks.
Look at that. I think we officially just had our first. No, we did this before. We had, I think we talked about it when we filmed up or recorded episode 4 and 5. We kind of gave the hook for what episode 5 would be.
Yeah.
So maybe this isn't our first hook.
So if you want
to,
if you want to join us in the next podcast, we'll be looking at Andy's career as of this week.
Well, and then probably yours. And then we'll
Interviews.
also continue
And those
to
things.
rehash the old podcasts.
We'll just keep, content creation is all about like recreation
Just taking the ideas and like
and
turning into something else.
rephrasing it. Like, okay. Goodbye, everyone.